Hello everyone, so it is time for another rendition of Rapid Fire Review. So of course I do these when I get a little behind on movie watching for the year, and there's been so much coming out, so it's been very easy for me to get a little behind on my movie watching. So of course I usually do these for more straight to streaming movies, or movies that I ended up just missing out on in the theaters a little bit before. Now I'm finally getting the chance to watch them. So my four movies that I have today are Boston Strangler, Malum, Bunker, and A Good Person. So with these, I really just gave my very quick synopsis of the film, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, what I thought they did good, what I thought they didn't do so great, and my overall score of, again, to these movies, and if I'd recommend them or not. So yes, without further ado, let me get into these four movies and review all of them. So the first film I have today is Boston Strangler. This one is just a little under 2 hours long. It is rated R. It is directed by Matt Ruskin, and it stars Keira Knightley. So this one is about Loretta McLaughlin, who was the reporter who first connected the murders and broke the story of the Boston Strangler. She and Jane Cole challenged the sexism of the early 1960s to report on the city's most notorious serial killer. So for a lot of this movie, I really like the tone that they were able to just address. It's very bleak, it's very dark, and the acting definitely is bolstered, just that storytelling and that aspects of course these killings, and the whole like angle that they take about how journalism can really be dangerous in these situations, but also too how really the bureaucracy of policing can really diminish the voices that may have the most information or the greatest perspective on, again, to who the killer might be and how to keep people safe. It is definitely a really big critique of how policing is done around these situations, especially during this time, and of course the certain situation that of course, the Boston police had on their hands at this time. I do find, again, too, like that very bleak tone can make a lot of these situations not really hit as hard as I feel like it could have, in terms of, again, to just really getting into the, for lack of a better word here, nitty gritty of just how awful this situation truly was. And I found too, it just made a lot of, again, too, a lot of this bleakness makes the movie feel bland in a lot of ways, where they could have done things that would have let a lot of the character shine, a lot of the situation shine, and shown a lot more of the in-depth of what goes on as a reporter, and again to how silenced she was during this whole scenario. I know too that a lot of people have called out historical inaccuracies when it comes to, again, to the whole case here, and I found that the ending of this movie is very rushed, and it's something that could have been fleshed out a lot more with maybe 15-20 minutes more time. That would have just made the whole scenario play out better and play out in ways that seem smarter in terms of the narrative that this movie was going. Overall, I think it is a good watch, and the performances definitely make it really worthwhile. And I find, again, too, that they really nailed the time era that this takes place in. So it did some really good things, but I didn't find that it had enough execution to really hit home on everything the movie was trying to touch upon. So that is why I'm going to have to give the Boston Strangler a 6.5 out of 10. You'll be able to find this on Hulu, but if you have Disney Plus here in Canada, that's where I was able to watch this movie. So that should be where you're able to watch it too. So the next movie I have is Malum. This one is heavily rated R. It is just a little over 90 minutes long. Directed by Anthony D. Blasey. I really hope I pronounced that right, but I know this is a kind of remake of a movie known as The Last Shift, and I never got the chance to watch that, so I can't really compare this movie with, of course, that movie, and how well did it kind of tell that story, how well did it do things. But this movie is about a rookie police officer who willingly takes the last shift at a newly decommissioned police station in an attempt to uncover the mysterious connection between her father's death and a vicious cult. So again, too, the movie starts off talking and showing us about, again, to her father's last shift within this police station, and now a year later she is, again, taking the very last shift within this police station to try and uncover what was going on in her dad's mind at the very last moments of, again, to his life and within this police station. A lot of this movie kind of goes into the kind of talk about do we know really what's going on within her mind? Is what she's seeing real? Is what she's akin to hearing real? All these things, is there actually truth to what this cult is trying to uncover? And a lot of the times I found that this movie didn't give us enough to go on to really understand what was going on within this police station, within this cult, within our father's life, things like that. It's just very, very selective in the things that they tell us and show us, and too selective to really make a narrative that makes sense by the end of this movie. Um, I also found a lot of it too when it shows you. I kind of don't want to get into this for spoiler sake, but when it kind of reveals what this movie was about and what the force again to behind everything that's going on, what that was, I found that there was enough information that really anyone is going to be able to tie things together well, but at the same time, it was just done in a way that it just wasn't explained well enough within the cult what was going on, and it did kind of really diminish a lot of this movie for me. In terms of its horror, it does some really cool and unique things. The violence and this, like again, to the brutality of this movie does hit really, really hard, and it did great in terms of that. So there are some very, if you're squeamish, this definitely isn't a movie that you should be going into because it is brutal. It is really gory and disturbing in a lot of ways, and they really hit upon that in ways that were really, really great. Again, I just find that the narrative wasn't anything to sell this movie on its own. So I do think it's worth a watch, and that's why I'm gonna have to give Malum a 6 out of 10. Only really for what can I recommend this to kind of hardcore horror fans, or if you really, really want a horror movie to watch that you don't really need to worry about following along with the plot too much. This is perfect because it doesn't really give you much to go off of anyways. But when it comes down to the horror, it does do it pretty damn well. Third up, we have a movie called Bunker. This is a horror thriller that comes in at just about an hour and 50 minutes long. It is rated R, and it is about a group of soldiers who are trapped in a bunker during World War One. They are faced with an ungodly presence that slowly turns them against one another when they get into this bunker. So again, so they find this bunker that's been sealed off from the outside. They go in trying to figure out where, again, to the Germans, the enemy, went. And when they get inside, they find that again, not everything is as it seems, sort of thing. There is a lot of really bad things I can say about this movie in a lot of ways. It does feel extremely almost like a what should have been a made for TV movie in a lot of ways. I did find that there was times where this movie had a way better practical effects budget or like even to special effects budget than it really needed in a lot of ways. There's things that some of the CGI and some of the effects do look really, really good within this movie, but that's really the only thing that I can recommend or say that was great about this. I found the performances were very, very bland. We've seen them before. There was nothing unique to the characters at all, and there wasn't really much to the characters at all for you to care about these soldiers or kind of get into their minds. I found everything was really poorly written, and unfortunately, that translated to bad performances kind of all throughout this movie. Um, it's really, really small scale in a way that should have worked and felt very claustrophobic, but never did it really do that for me. I found too creature design wasn't anything special to rave about. Horror wise, not once did this movie even make me feel uncomfortable in a lot of ways that it was doing things just because of how slow and drawn out so much of it was that really doesn't build up to much of anything or much of an explanation by the end of this movie. It's really, really hard to get into. It was really, really hard for me to stay awake through a lot of it too. I think this would have been way better off as a short film rather than almost a 2 hour long movie. Very, very tough to get to, and that's why I'm gonna have to give it a 4 out of 10, which I do think I find is a little more generous than it probably needs to be, but I'm definitely gonna have a hard time recommending this movie to anyone. Now, last up, we have a movie known as A Good Person. This one is rated R, comes in at about 2 hours and 10 minutes long. You should still be able to find this one in theaters, and it is directed by Zach Braff, stars Florence Pugh and Morgan Freeman, and it follows Allison, played by Florence Pugh, whose life falls apart following her involvement in a fatal accident. She goes to rehab where she meets Morgan Freeman's character again because I don't really want to get into it too much for spoiler's sake, but the people that she lost in this car accidents have direct relations with Morgan Freeman's character within this. And again, too, it is a story of both of them trying to get through their rehabs, get through all the shit that has been thrown at them within their life. And it is a telling basically of how people deal with their addictions, potentially beat their addictions, but really fight with it their entire life. And I found that it was a really, really good commentary on addiction and something that I've seen before, something that's hit hard for me in a lot of ways and felt very, very close to home in a lot of ways for me too. This movie is very, very grounded in terms of its storytelling, in terms of the way that it handles addiction, deals with addiction, and kind of brings it to the forefront. And it's all bolstered by an amazing performance by, again, two our two lead actors, well, Morgan Freeman and Florence Pugh here. Their performances are absolutely stellar, and of course, the dialogue that they have is very, very heavy, and it hits hard in a lot of ways too. Again, too, I just found this movie is very, very grounded, very, very real in a lots of ways. There were a few times where I found that the scenario or like certain like side missions or journeys, whatever you want to call them, that some of the characters take did feel maybe a little out of place within this movie or felt a little too lively for a lot of the story that they were trying to tell. Maybe a little too teen drama for the story that they're trying to tell is what I'm kind of trying to get into here. But and there's a lot of times too where this movie did feel like it was overlong and certain scenes were stretched out in a lot of ways, but it all built to some very great character moments and character studies within this movie. A lot of times too I found that the side characters weren't fleshed out enough to make it really feel like they were going to have that much of an impact on a lot of the characters, and I found there's a lot of relationships that we didn't really get to see mended in a way that felt believable by the end of the movie. um I think too, I might just be comparing it a little too much to Silver Linings Playbook in a lot of ways in my mind, but I find that movie is just kind of a great basis when it comes to talking about addiction, mental health, stress, and just again to getting someone's life back together in a lot of ways. And I just feel like that movie is the perfect thing to kind of compare this to. And in a lot of ways, this movie just didn't hit on a lot of those relationships, mending and truly building up their characters in a lot of ways to be fully satisfying by the end. But truly, this is a great commentary and touches upon a lot of very important things that I think it did really, really well. So with everything taken together, I'm still gonna have to give A Good Person an 8 out of 10. It's easily within my 10 favorite movies of the year so far. I really, really enjoyed it, and the performances are absolutely stellar. So if you've seen any of these foreign movies, please let me know what you thought about them in the comments down below. And of course, if you like this or like these reviews, definitely give it a thumbs up, and you check out everything I do on this channel through our playlist down below, and I'll link some up top here for convenience sake. Thank you for subscribing and turn that little ringer on so you know when I upload new videos. If you want to check out the description of this video or the channel bio, there's a link to the Media Mountain, which is my Discord, where we talk about movies, video games, comic books, TV, pretty much everything that's awesome in this world. So you definitely join that amazing community. I'll make it more amazing than it is already. And yeah, just awesome, guys.